the Australian Association of Bush Regenerators 2024 National Forum was hosted by our Victorian branch. Exploring the R's of ecological restoration, restoring biodiversity through resilience, regeneration, reintroduction, and reconnecting to country.
Up next is Craig McGrath from the City of Yarra, who will talk about applying the 12 elements from the national standards to contract specifications.
Craig McGrath, Biodiversity Officer, City of Yarra. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Elders, Gillian and Uncle Shane. That was beautiful. Obviously, for the City of Yarra, we acknowledge Wurundjeri as traditional owners of the land we're now meeting on. Pay great respect to Elders, past, present and emerging. I also just want to say, we've got a Stolen Generations marker up here, and I have some beautiful stories from Uncle Cutcher Edwards and Uncle Cole. I've been on walks with Uncle Cole. Very, very privileged to do that, to see some of the country. We were looking for a candidate for a canoe tree, actually, with some other elders, and that was a beautiful experience. So while my talk's not all about culture and connecting to country, because I think people are doing it better than I do, I love being a part of that, and I embrace it every other time. And we as practitioners should think about that as we're here today. My talk was about getting the 12 elements of the SARA standards into our contract. And if you know the principles, that's basically which pretty much underwrites the way how the City of Yarra has written our contract up. And going back to what we're talking about with Teen just before, talking about the reference ecosystems, one of the things that came out, I'm going to rewind back into 2016 when all this came. And I came off paternity leave, actually, and I thought, guys, when we write our contract, we've got to get these principles in there. We've got to get these elements in there. And so there's 18 elements in the circumplex. That's how it kind of came about. Here's the principles. I won't read them all out, but you can see them. And if you've seen the national standards, I don't assume everybody has, but I'll put the PDF of this slide up there so you can go into a deep dive. I've only got 10 minutes, but I reckon I can whack through it all and you'll get a gist about what we're talking about. There's a circumplex where I saw that and I thought, that is fantastic. Back in 2016, we had the wonderful Lincoln's team, Practical Ecology, put together this amazing work. It took 2 years. And basically we found out there was over 200 species that had been in the City of Yarra. And it created a whole new dynamic. We've got this great, amazing wad of complexity. We've got all this data, but a lot of it, when you broke it down, fitted into this circumplex, and it was wonderful. So I couldn't wait to tell everybody that when I got back from paternity leave, so this is what we've got some real data, and we also had been through 15 years on and off of drought, so we kind of knew about how each system was kind of reacting through some of the harshest times. And as we're moving into climate change, I think you'll agree that we've got to start thinking about the climate emergency. For non-Victorians, this is the DSC reference to our ecological vegetation classes. New South Wales uses, I think the terminology is plant community types. I just wanted to point out that what we've got here, and this is how we're kind of running our contract off, is what our sites might look like. The fact that City of Yarra doesn't have any perfect reference systems is a problem, but this is our next best thing. And there's some really good information in here. Just expanding from it has a description of the site, and just underneath it, it has what the tree species would be there, but it goes into the cover of life form as well. And so basically what we did was, when we did our new contract, we embedded some of those ideas about rebuilding this structure of a system. So here we go. So we jump straight into what do you need to do make a good contract? 9 years. Pretty daunting for a council to say 9 years. It's 4 plus 3 plus 2. But when you want to get a long-term change, you need to plan long-term, and you need to be able to reflect on what's happening real time, but also project what might be happening in the system the next few years to come. So basically what we did with our contract is we got a bushland service plan, which covered the 4 years, and then we do annual plans. So in each site, there's sites within sites, and you can see there's a little diagram of Hall Reserve there. So you can see there's a patchwork of different ways how each area is being managed. And so each one of those areas has its own separate management plan. And so, as I said, just whipping straight through it. So that's what we do. And there are some specific site issues for those sites. And There's our smiling crew up there from Felix Botanic who got the job. There's a few of them in the audience, and Gus is the most, is the supermodel up there. It's just want to shout out for Gus. And then in terms of what we do in terms of the annual works plan, we have ongoing contract meetings. So we keep the information live, and we try to be as responsive as we can in that process of reflecting back on the annual plans. Okay, so this is basically what, when the Sarah standards came out in 2016, it's been revised, and I've thrown some numbers up there. But I really jumped on this, what Teen has already talked about. Where largely the City of Yarra sadly is in that reintroduction phase, because a lot of our areas are highly modified. There's a lot of fill in our sites, and a lot of our sites are contaminated. So we have got a pretty tough run in terms of trying to find those remnant areas, but there are some small patches there. And so basically what we did with the contract is we couldn't get the 5-star response in our system. So we're kind of working from the 4-star and below. And then basically for the contract, we needed to get some targets in there, some achievable targets. So if we could get 80% of the EVC benchmark, that might be as good as we can get, but at least we've got that. And then as we go down into our poorer quality sites, the first two are kind of like good and not so bad, and then the last two are kind of the worst sites. We're trying to get rid of, at the very worst part, we've still got some weeds around, we've still got some Calpac weeds around, but we're trying to get on top of those. So it's really about taking out those threatening processes in the lower two ones, and the top two ones, we're trying to improve the biodiversity in terms of the plant biodiversity in those systems. Here's just the way how we're auditing our sites, and there's a contractor maintenance screenshot up there. You can see there's two little blue dots up there. That's actually two smaller jobs completed. We do a rapid assessment now, and if you can see just in the middle frame there, I've got two transect lines, and they're deliberately that colour because they go back to what class we're trying to, we're looking to, well, in terms of class, what kind of outcomes we're trying to achieve in those lines. So there's different colours. And then every year we have an annual audit, and all that information from the contractor or people from council, whether it's planting plans or the works we've done in the past, and there might have been some emerging species that we had coming up that we thought we'd actually pass that information over to the consultants, and they would go and do a deep dive audit, and they'd actually quantify how many life forms and the cover of each species we had. So they do a deep dive annually, but also pull in that information that we've been collecting through the rapid assessments and the maintenance plans. And then we collect that data, and here's like a five-year trend. Whole reserve. So we've got actually two EVCs there. So that's why there were separate patches. I might have explained that a bit better last slide, but two of them are class 1. They're really good. And you'll notice in 2020, we actually expanded some of those sites from the worst areas, from the class 3 actually into the class 1. So there's a peak and a trough. And going down this bottom left slide, where there was a riparian woodland area, it had quite good EVC. I've written representation there, but it was actually an EVC benchmark, and it drops down. But that's because it actually went into we actually expanded the really good part of that zone 3, and we improved it, and it actually met the zone 1 criteria. So that's why you see some of the changes going on there in that linear passage, and there's a bit of a spike in weeds in that class 1 for the plains grassy woodland because of the same thing. We expanded a new site. Anyway, all that aside, the bottom right-hand slide, I hope everyone can see it, we actually are evolving this circumplex, and we're adding new things in there. So we started actually adding in the percentage of life form cover. So while it was all very interesting to have, we've got tick box, we've got say 80% of the species of that matches up with the EVC, we might not have had the cover, but we also started adding that in there. So it's an evolving process to include those things. Here's our circumplex, which has been modified from the original one. I won't go into too much detail about that, but it's just really how we're monitoring outcomes. So quickly, the annual audit. So it's at the same time every year, November over to December. So hopefully our auditors are seeing the most species available, but through the year, there's other species which come up that we pass on to them. So we actually get a more robust assessment about how many species are actually on site. A contractor audits everything quarterly as well. So it's really important to have your contractor auditing as well, just to make sure that you're seeing the same things. And it also brings them along for the journey as well. And also have your contractor meeting with the consultant to say, well, maybe there's something I've missed, and the consultant can pick up that information and before they go out and do the assessment. So they've got a full breadth of knowledge about what the sites are doing as well, so they can zone in on that. So thank you very much, Danielle Woodlands, who's been our consultant for the last one, and Liza James was fantastic for practical ecology as well in the past. So she's been doing some terrific work for us. Here's that. I'm going to put a PDF up there. It's too much detail there, but that's how we're scoring those sites. This is the rapid assessment tool that I'm using. So yeah, we go down and we look at fungi as well, different trophic levels, starting from first to order consumers. So Hempatera, I mean, you've got predators and first order consumers there, but that was just a quick slide. And one of the things that what we're trying to do here as well is collect a lot of that information and think about, well, what bioindicators are out there. I know this is a great topic, and you spend the whole day on bioindicators, but I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of research papers talking about Coleoptera, the beetles, but I just took, and these are my photos when I'm going around and taking these quick assessments. It's really easy, and then you just bang them onto Nine Naturalists. So that's a way of including the citizen science and getting people interested in your projects as well. So it's just another way, I guess, to get that sixth element of the principles to have the community involved in some of your projects. These two bugs are Hempatera species, so they're interesting. They're sap-sucking bugs, so unfortunately for gardeners, they might not be your best friend, but anyway, do they have a part to play in insect diversity in that conversation? And in terms of cryptograms, the fungi, I'm taking photos of those as well. Some of them are in really poor conditions. Elphington wetland and Dice Falls. There's the Dice Fall area is particularly run down, but I just can't believe that shaggy mame is sitting there. So it's all about abiotic systems as well. So let's get that conversation going about abiotic systems. Here's me just cheekily. One of the reasons why I'm bringing these things up is I love this idea about the incomplete puzzle hypothesis. I've actually got a reference down there, but it talks about if you get enough of the right puzzles in there, if you're doing a lot of the right work, if your results are being driven the right way, then you start pulling a lot of these pieces of the puzzles together and you start creating the picture, you start forming that final picture. So you might have a couple pieces missing, but getting the right trajectory, asking the right questions and getting the right information in there, I think is really important. And I think that's what the cryptogram tries to do. And to be fair, there's 18 elements in there and some of them are really deep, have really got a lot of science in the background of it. So getting the science right, I think it's just a new idea to bring to, and something to think about for yourselves as well as you go back. You go, well, what species are doing really well and what do I need to do to help that species proliferate? And here's just an example about, well, we had a really interesting site where it was highly degraded. We actually did a test plot here on the top right-hand. We found it was all fill. It wasn't actually the original soil, so we had a feeling that it wasn't the right seed bank sitting there anyway, which kind of explained why the site was very, very weedy. But we went through this the checklist of a lot of things because we wanted to create in terms of creating a seed bank, well, we've got to be climate ready. So the areas which are really dry but in a pollinator zone, this site particularly was on a slight, so we wouldn't get much trampling. We're hoping anyway, and we did put some signs up there to tell people to keep off there, but to explain what was going on. The soil quality was pretty horrible, but there was good hydrology there, so even though it wasn't the right soil type, it had the right hydrology to back to the reference system. So that was kind of, see, I'm trying to throw these puzzle pieces together to get this site up and running, and we ended up doing a design, ended up going for direct seeding, and we got about 700 stems per square metre. So it was an amazing project. You can see the befores and the afters there, and there's actually even there's an acacia implexor regenerating from that site. So it's one of the questions that you might have going away from this conference. Are there enough puzzle pieces in there to trial and error to start doing these things, to give it a go? If you're not quite sure, but you've got enough of the right puzzle pieces in there, just give it a go and see what comes up, and you might be pleasantly surprised. And this is I guess the City of Yarra's contract is an adaptive management focus. So one of the things, I guess, and you'll hear it reiterated here, getting the right drivers in there, studying which will help get the right decisions in. And our contractors are really on the same page with all of this stuff. So I think where we're going to, this final word is that we've got to think about is trust. Trust is a big word, and I put that reference there. I was actually watching a documentary on. It's a really left of field thing, but this guy Joe Monahan is trying to make the biggest contract in sports history, and he went out to he went out to the golf pros and he said, we're doing everything the right way, and that's the foundation about what we're trying to do. And this doesn't exist, or trust doesn't exist without results driven the right way. So that's my, I guess, final message to you all. Thanks very much for your time, everyone.
Massive thanks to our forum sponsors: City of Yarra, DNA Training, Arbor Green, Merri Creek Management Committee, Ecological Consultants Association Victoria, Stantec Australia, Global Green Environmental, NRM Jobs, and Nature Links. Arbor promotes the study and practice of ecological restoration and fosters and encourages effective management of Australia's natural areas by qualified people based on sound ecological principles. Join us to help promote good work practices, to strengthen our industry and network with like-minded people. Thanks for visiting Regen TV. Call by again soon for more restoration content you can trust.